everybody, and welcome back. So today what I'm decided to do is to rebroadcast the video log that I streamed last week because I made a few mistakes, technical mistakes, and forgot to say a few things, so I thought I'd give it another go. I've tried recording it, it just doesn't work for me, so I'm doing it live. So let's hope that it works this time, shall we? So basically this is the first of a series of video logs that I want to look at, maybe 3 of them, I don't know yet, let's see, that are just talking about the history of the lineage that I teach, or the lineages that I teach, in parallel with the history of where I teach it, which is in Worcester. And obviously most of the history of this lineage is Chinese, so we're going to be looking sort of at those two things together to see how they compare and contrast, hopefully to make something that I think is interesting even more interesting by having local history and lineage history. So hopefully that'll work out nicely. The thing I wanted to do actually was to show you something else that I'm interested in, which is flowers. You see, the thing is, we're still in the middle of curfew. It's sort of getting close to the middle of June now, and curfew started way back in March, towards the end of March, which is spring. Spring is my favourite season of the 4 seasons, closely followed by autumn, just because of the beautiful colours that we see, the flowers and especially the tree blossoms, which sadly I'm allergic to, but or some of them I am, but nevertheless I still enjoy looking at them and taking photographs. So the first thing that I'm going to do is show you a slideshow, hopefully it'll work this time, of some photographs that I took over the duration of curfew this year. So I'm just going to click on a button, and that's going to take us to some flowers in my back garden which were taken recently. Then obviously some clover, which was also taken recently, and then we're going back in time really, sort of looking at hedgerow blossom there, and then there's horse chestnut blossoms, which are just spectacular close up with all those different colours, really beautiful, and more hedgerow blossoms, and there's some bluebells. I didn't get to see many bluebells because I wasn't allowed out, but there's some local to me. I thought that looked nice as well, so I took a picture of that. Not really a flower, and I'm not keen on dandelions, particularly in my garden. No, it still doesn't like it. It's gone back to the start again. Never mind. Maybe there's something about the number of slides in there. I don't know. But nevertheless, we get a nice show of beautiful flowers there. Fantastic. So, and then I'd like to just switch over to my favourite blossom, which is, I'm going to stop this. No, I'm not going to stop, I'm going to carry on. My favourite blossom, which is blackthorn blossom, and it's a video I shot, well, see if you recognise it when we get there. Hopefully it's going to come through. So we're getting a little bit of buffering going on. I hope that's not disturbing you too much. I'm seeing that we've got a couple of viewers watching. So this is a video I shot on my phone, which actually has an excellent camera on it. It's just the app on it that's the problem. But and it's looking out from Lansdowne over the city, which is a similar position as the opening photograph that you saw there. So you can see that we've got Worcester Cathedral there to the left, just to the side of the blackthorn bush, and then we've got a couple more spires, and I think that one on the right is the Baptist Church, I could be wrong. And then right across on the right hand side there, you can just make out a fairly ugly building actually with a chimney, and I believe that's the old swimming pool, the swim baths, which I personally only got to use once before it closed down. I don't know what they're going to do with it, but anyway, that's the swimming baths. But then to the right of that, this is the area of interest, which we can't actually see on the image, is an area that's I've become interested in for a variety of reasons, which will emerge over this series of videos, called Wistones or Wistons. or Wystons. It's spelled W-H-I-T-S-T-O-N-S or E-S, depending on who you refer to. So that's an interesting place, and we'll just take a look at it look at the map of that. I couldn't get a map up last time, and I can get a map up now because I've got it on my browser. So you can see, where are we? Here. This is. Let me just bring this to the fore. So where my hand pointer is, this is roughly where that video was shot and the photographs were taken from Lansdowne Crescent, and it's kind of looking over in that direction. But here, if we look over here, we can see this shaded area here is the campus of the RGS, the Royal Grammar School Senior School, and basically this is a small portion of the area that's known as Wistones. I'm going to call it Wistones, however it's pronounced. And first thing to say is that we have this road here called Flag Meadow Walk, which is named after Flag Meadow, which is basically here. Flag Meadow is here. But Flag Meadow is actually spelled F-L-A-G-G-E. There's a G and an E missing from the name of this road name that's on this meadow, which is also actually owned by RGS. It's their playing fields these days, but they've still spelt it correctly. Now, I used to think, because occasionally I used to drive down here, I used to think that it was named after sweet flag, or a flag iris, perhaps, that maybe grew in this meadow. But that isn't the case, and if you're thinking that, I'm going to dispel that myth for you, because this area, this meadow here, I believe was owned back in the 1250s by a gentleman by the name of Peter de la Flag, and that's the reason why it's called Flag Meadow, because it was his meadow. Another interesting thing is this road here called White Ladies Close. This is named after the White Ladies, which were some nuns, the Cistercian nuns that had a priory around about here. So it's now kind of part of the RGS campus, and I believe actually one of the buildings on the RGS campus is called Priory House, which is named after the priory that these Cistercian nuns occupied. And that was there, probably formed before the year 1240. So 1240 is the first historical record that I could find of this place. And that historical record is basically recording that Henry III sent a cask of the king's wine from a Tewkesbury dealer to these nuns after they made a number of claims of poverty. And chances are they probably were very poor, as most people were in those days. So Henry III was one of the first Plantagenets, or Plantagenets, depending on how you like to pronounce it, from the house of Plantagenet. And prior to him, it was the house of Normandy, the Normans, who, as you all know, conquered us in 1066. Conquered Britain in 1066, and then decided that they owned everything, and everybody that lived here could carry on living here, but they'd have to pay them rent. And they did all sorts of bad things, terrible things to the locals, which we won't go into too much detail, other than to say that life was really hard for them, and then life was relatively easy for the Normans that came and settled. Things deteriorated during the time of King John. King John died in 1216, so he was prior to Henry III, and basically King John made life a little bit easier. Against his will, he had to make life a little bit easier for people through the signing, or actually the sealing, of the Magna Carta. And if you haven't heard of that, then I recommend you do a little bit of rooting around to find out what that's all about, because it was a pretty significant thing that happened. But I'm not going to talk about that today, even though I just have. What I'm talking about is the White Ladies. Now, the White Ladies are the same white ladies that are referred to in the name of the place called White Ladies Aston. And if I zoom out a little bit, it's all going to go wrong now, I expect, but I'll try. I'm going to zoom out a bit. If we go all the way over here somewhere, you can see, hopefully, I'm going to zoom in again, we got this place here called White Ladies Aston. Now this originally was called, I believe, Aston Episcopi, until this area of land was granted to the Cistercian nuns in Wistones. My other little bit of, so that's, I mean, no one's told me that directly, but I've seen it written down in some historical records, and I'll give you some references after I've done this recording. So let's just go back to this area here. So viewing from Lansdowne Crescent all the way down here, and I'm zoomed out slightly now. So this here is White Ladies Close, and down here we have Severn Terrace and the Moors, which is whereabouts I have one of my Taiji classes, which is also located in Wistones. So this is quite a big area, Wistones, but it's just outside the city, so it's actually originally not part of Worcester City. It was part of, and probably still is, the Claines parish, which was huge, really big, surprisingly big, because I thought Claines was just like a little village which is to the north of Worcester, but actually it is also a parish which is huge, and Wistones was part of that parish. So another interesting thing about flag, so we've got this flag meadow walk here in the flag meadow. In 1308, a lady by the name of Alice de la Flag took charge of the White Ladies Priory, the Cistercian nuns' priory. She was voted in by the other nuns apparently, and there's some interesting ramblings about that you can see online about how they had to go about having that election to elect her. But clearly she must be some kind of relation, and I haven't had a chance to trace exactly what that relation is to Peter de la Flag. But she was elected into place in 1308, and again there's some more records there of how poor they were, and at one point they had to seek permission from, I think, the bishop to go out begging because they were so poor. Meanwhile, over in China, similar kind of poverty was going on and similar kind of trouble was happening. So let's switch over to this map of China, and I've pegged it at a place called Wudang Mountain. So around this time, the Mongolians were in charge of China, or large parts of China, and they weren't being particularly nice. So there's Wudangshan. Let me just zoom in a bit more. There's Wudangshan. They weren't being particularly nice to the local populace of China, the Han Chinese. They were pretty nasty, but they were also quite paranoid. They probably rightly so as well. Quite paranoid that there was going to be an uprising. So one of the things that they did was that they banned possession of any kind of metal. So you can imagine, like, ploughing a field would be really difficult, digging a field really difficult, because you need a plough or a spade or something. And in fact, so that people could actually cut their food, they arranged for groups of 10 families to share a single knife between them. So you can imagine how tough that must have been, as well as just really stupid. Imagine trying to deal with that. Excuse me, could I borrow the knife? I just want to cut another piece of my food while I'm having my dinner. Also, so, there was other ways in which they tried to control the people. And the other way in which they tried to control the people was by supporting Taoism and Buddhism. And so they supported the establishment and the running of Taoist and Buddhist monasteries, because these were religions of peace, and they knew that that they didn't need to do much else to pacify the population if they were all participating in that. However, what they didn't know is some of those monasteries were actually centres, revolutionary hideouts, if you like, where people were being trained to revolt, being trained to fight in a revolution. So this is why Wudangshan is significant, because there was one such monastery there, a Taoist monastery, that was led by a guy called Shang Sanfeng. So let's just have a quick look at Shang Sanfeng. There's a painting of him, famous painting of him. He was a Taoist monk. He was the abbot of this monastery, but he was also a martial artist, or he became one. He was very adept in what we these days call Qigong exercises. Back then it was Daoyin, really, that he practiced, which is basically internal healing exercises or internal health exercises. And he was the first person in recorded history to have taken this knowledge, taken this technique, and applied it for martial arts. And he developed what's known as 13 shi, or methods. So 13 methods or postures or movements for applying this internal movement to martial applications. Why is that significant? That's significant because there is a claim in some of the Taiji classics that this original 13 shi were the beginnings of Tai Chi Chuan, Tai Chi. Of course, there's a bit of an argument about that, rumbling on. The Chen family say that this isn't true, although now certain members of the Chen family or the Chen lineage say that it is true and argue, whereas it tends to be the story coming from the Yang family. So most of the Tai Chi classics which came out in the 19th century, or which were written in the 19th century and the 20th century, come from the Yang family, and they claim that their lineage goes back to this Shang Sanfeng guy. Meanwhile, the Chen family claim otherwise. So here we have it. We have Shang, and he was located in Wudangshan, in this monastery. And eventually, the revolution happened, the Mongolians were overthrown, and a new dynasty took over. And one of the generals to the emperor of this new dynasty was had fought with Zhang Sanfeng, and therefore feared him because, first of all, he was very powerful as a martial artist, but he was also very powerful because he had a big following, and so they wanted to get rid of him. And I believe the history books say that they tried a number of methods, but the method that they believed was successful was they sent an army of soldiers out to Wudangshan and burnt down all of the monasteries there, thereby, hopefully, they thought, destroying Zhang Sanfeng. However, word has it that Zhang Sanfeng actually left Wudangshan a couple of nights before they arrived, and disappeared off to somewhere else. I'm just going to click on another link. A place called Simingshan, or at least according to the Shen family lineage, that's what happened next. So let's just zoom in a bit. There's Ningbo City, and if I can just move across here, we can see, hopefully now in the centre, Simingshan. Each time I zoom in, the words go small again, so I'm just hoping that you can see that clearly. So here is a mountainous area called Simingshan, which is still these days very beautiful and a good tourist attraction. So if you ever get over to China, it's worth taking a look there because it is quite a nice spot. So word has it that Zhang Sanfeng holed up in Simingshan, and there's not much written about this in the history books, partly because he didn't want to be discovered, and partly because people just didn't write much in those days, I think. Of course, other people would claim that the reason why nothing's written about it is because he didn't go. So there's going to be some argument about that. But we're saying that he did. And there is a style of Tai Chi that emerged from there in the 19th century, which was often referred to as simming Tai Chi, or Tai Chi 37, as we call it. So, hence the name Tai Chi 37, which is the style of Tai Chi that I teach. So, I just wanted to bring us through from Shang Feng to Tai Chi 37, and then how that came to the knowledge of Dr. Shen. Let's have a quick picture of Dr. Shen if I can find him. Here we go. There's Dr. Shen, who he learnt Yang style Tai Chi Chuan, but also later on, after his childhood, he learnt Tai Chi 37. Now, his main teacher, who taught him who taught him Yang style Tai Chi, was this guy, Yao Huanxi, Professor Yao Huanxi. Now, Dr. Shen met him in Shanghai, where Dr. Shen lived, shall I say, at the time. He was born in Shanghai and grew up there. And this guy lived very close to him. And he was quite famous within those parts as being an adept at internal martial arts. Professor Yao, prior to living in Shanghai, lived in Zhejiang province, which is where Siming Shan is. He didn't live, I don't think, at Siming Mountain. He lived somewhere else, and he was a professor at one of the Zhejiang, or Zhejiang, I don't know how you pronounce it, universities. Teaching, I think actually he taught English, I think, could be wrong. But he also taught and studied Tai Chi Chuan. Now he taught Yang style Tai Chi always, but he also learnt Simming style Tai Chi whilst he was there, and that sort of influenced the way in which he taught, and the style in which he taught, and the knowledge that he applied. And so Dr. Shen came to discover that. There was always a question, well, what is it about Professor Yao's Tai Chi that was profoundly better or different than all the other Yang style Tai Chis? And this was one of the reasons that Dr. Shen thought it was, and discovered that it was different. And so Dr. Shen then developed it further, and the style of Tai Chi that we call Tai Chi 37 is structured around Yang style, but it's infused with some of the unique ingredients that are in the Tai Chi 37, in the Simming Tai Chi, which is very rare. I could tell you lots of stories about it, but I don't think I have really time to do that today. I just wanted to give you some hints and clues and some stuff to I don't know, ignite your interest in it a little bit. So that's one part of it, but there are some other bits as well, which I'm going to talk about in later videos that are interesting. So that's pretty much about everything that I wanted to say today, other than to take you back, really, I suppose, to Whistones in Worcester, and say that let's just have another quick look at the map of that, shall we, if I can find it. Doo-be-doo-be-doo. There we are. Just wanted to say that when we come out of curfew, classes will be starting up again, and we'll be carrying on to learn Tai Chi 37. Also, Whistones was sort of caught my eye because I was looking up something else. I was looking up some other historical stuff, which is a little bit later than than our white ladies, nuns, in the sort of 16th, 17th century kind of era. And I'm going to talk about that in another video, which will take us again, track us again back through to China and also Tibet as well, part of Tibet, and show how another strand of knowledge infused what is these days called the Buchi system that was developed by Dr. Shang. So I'll leave it there with you guys and say thanks very much for watching, and I hope that you tune into the next one, which will be at least as interesting, if not even more interesting. Bye for now.